Today I want to talk to you about anti-theism because there isn't much information that you can find on the web about it. So I've done a little research and I pulled a lot of what I've got here in my notes from Wikipedia. So I'd like to thank Google and Pac Bell and Thomas Edison. Thank you. Thank you for these few pages of notes. Couldn't have done it without you. Wikipedia. Antitheism was first recorded in English in 1788. Antitheism is the active opposition to theism. Theism is belief in God, and antitheism typically refers to the direct opposition to organized religion. Now, technically, all religions, or most of them, oppose each other, since theism is the belief in a God, and all religions have their own separate gods and beliefs. Then each religion is in its own way anti-theist. Atheism is the rejection of belief in any deity and all gods. Anti-theism is the opposition of belief in the existence of one. To be an atheist is to also be an anti-theist, but to be an anti-theist is not to be an atheist. Most who are anti-theist would adopt as a label by those who regard theism as dangerous or destructive. A Hitchens quote that I like very much is, "I'm not even an atheist so much as I'm an anti-theist. I not only maintain that all religions are versions of the same untruth, but I hold that the influence of churches and the effect of religious belief is positively harmful." Hitchens also says, "One could be an atheist and wish that belief in God were correct, but an anti-theist, a term I'm trying to get into circulation, is someone who is relieved that there is no evidence for such an assertion. Organized religion is the main source of hatred in the world. Violent, irrational, intolerant, allied to racism, tribalism, bigotry, invested in ignorance, and hostile to free inquiry, contemptuous of women, and coercive towards children. Accordingly, it ought to have a great deal on its conscience." And isn't that the thing, that religion doesn't have it on its conscience? Take the Charlie Hebdo instance for example. That's just like swept under the rug, isn't it? That's how I feel about it. Religion expects you to believe in something you can't see and to love it more than your family. It says that you should leave your family for something invisible, and people, they do that. The real people, there's real people that in your family that you should love, and it says that you should leave them and you should hate them, and that you should ostracize them. Invisible. And then they commit these murders. They commit murder. Fucking motherfuckers. The Chambers Dictionary defines antitheism into three categories: doctrine antagonistic to theism, denial of the existence of a God, and opposition to a God. Doctrine antagonistic to theism means for it to be bad or immoral for such a being to exist, that it's evil, that it's wrong, that it's unjust for God, for religion, for any of it to coexist with humans, for mankind, for supernatural organized religion, that it's a negative impact on society. The denial of the existence of God is simply atheism, which is strong atheism, versus atheism or militant atheism is the very strong denial of the existence of God or the rejection of God, or just atheism, which is just a slightly rejected non-belief in a God. Maybe you have a very strong, very strong disbelief in God, but the opposition to the belief in God is the third definition of what anti-theism. The French Catholic philosopher Jacques Maritain in 1953, he wrote this in 1953, that it is an active struggle against everything that reminds us of God. He was raised Protestant, as well as myself. I was raised, who became agnostic, as well as myself again, and then converted to Catholicism in 1906, which I never did that. But Robert Flint in 1877, in his Bard lecture titled Antitheistic Theories, says very general, in his lecture, that very general umbrella term for all opposition to his own form of theism, which he defined as the belief that the heavens and the earth and all that they contain owe their existence and continuance to the wisdom and will of a supreme and self-existent, omnipotent, omniscient, righteous, and benevolent being who is distant from and independent of what he has created. And that is the very general umbrella term for all opposition of that. That is what that means. That is what he's talking about there. And those were anti-theist philosophers. Those are philosophers that talked about anti-theism, that acknowledged anti-theism. He goes on to say, in dealing with theories which have nothing in common except that they are antagonistic to theism, it is necessary to have a general term to designate them. Anti-theism appears to be the appropriate word. It is, of course, much more comprehensive in meaning than the term atheism. It applies to all systems which are opposed to theism. It includes, therefore, atheism, but short of atheism, there are anti-theistic theories. Polytheism is not atheism, for it does not deny that there is a deity, but it is anti-theistic since it denies that there is only one. So polytheism admits that there is a God, but that there's only one God, so it opposes all the other gods. Pantheism is not atheism, for it admits that there is a God, but it is not anti-theism, for it denies that God is a being distant from creation and possesses of such attributes as wisdom and holiness and love. Every theory which refuses to ascribe to God an attribute which is essential to a worthy conception of his character is anti-theistic. I'll say that one more time. Every theory which refuses to ascribe to God an attribute which is essential to a worthy conception of his character is anti-theistic. Only those theories which refuse to acknowledge that there is evidence for the existence of a God are atheistic. I'll say that one more time as well. Only those theories which refuse to acknowledge that there is evidence for the existence of a God are atheistic. So every theory which refuses to ascribe to God an attribute which is essential to a worthy conception of his character is anti-theistic, and only those theories which refuse to acknowledge that there is evidence for an existence of a God are anti-theistic. So basically all that means is that if you're going to oppose what somebody says, if somebody says the proof of God is that trees are growing and wind is blowing and babies are being born, that's the proof of God, and you're going to oppose that, that's anti-theism. If you're going to say you're wrong and I'm going to debate you and I'm going to argue that and I'm going to say I think that's evil that you believe that because it's causing corruption and you have all these you want people to leave their families because you believe that the wind is blowing because there's somebody dangling us from strings and controlling our destinies, and that's immoral, that's anti-theism. And if you just don't believe what that person is saying, if you simply say the wind is blowing because the earth's rotation and the atmosphere and the universe, and we know the scientific theories and hypotheses and equations and mathematical statuses, that's not the truth, that there's not something supernatural going on, that is just, we don't believe it, that's atheism, and that's all that means. And then there is misotheism, which is the hatred, the absolute just detesting, the fucking just excuse me. The obligatory, the fucking loathing of God or any deity, just the hatred of God. That's misotheism. You know, this always baffles me. I just don't understand why there's so many active, what that even means, but there's a lot of speeches with atheists like Richard Dawkins, and he was friends with Christopher Hitchens, like really good friends, and Lawrence Krauss, and these guys, they're known as like tub thumping atheists, and they never talk about anti-theism, and I'm very curious why they don't do that. I just want to know, they followed in their very good friend of theirs' footsteps, and he was an avid anti-theist, and he promoted anti-theism more than he did atheism. And then after he passed away, they all followed in his footsteps and were like promoting atheism, but then they never talked about anti-theism again. And I just never understood why it is that they never spoke about it until Sam Harris. He just was like the first one who I've ever heard get on in front of a live audience, in front of a whole group of people who were atheists, and he's talking about, am I going to come here today and talk to you all about what we all agree on, that there's no God, or am I going to use this time to make us all think? And he says that atheism is the wrong term. What a novel concept, Sam Harris and all of us who don't believe in God, because Christopher Hitchens was the originator of that concept. That's not a new thing. That's just something that we forgot about. And so I'd like to propose a question to somebody who goes by the name The Amazing Atheist. And the time this video has been recorded is March 2015. He recently made a video about the Chapel Hill shootings. And the video is about a guy who was an atheist who commit some kind of murders to some religious type of people. And so they tried to say that it was because they were religious he committed the murders. And the video he made about that, he made it seem like the type of people who are anti-theist are extremely aggressive types of anti-religious and almost as bad as religious people. But, you know, he's a very prominent supporter, as he calls it, the atheist community. And as someone who is an atheist, and he's also claims to be an anti-theist, I'm just curious why he doesn't talk about in more detail the difference or the definition of atheism and its effect on religion, people, and society. He states that he's going to respond to an article written by Elizabeth Stoker Bruning. In the video that she wrote a very bad review on the Chapel Hill shootings, that all atheists were these militant types of almost like we're psychopaths. And then I just didn't understand, like, was it that this guy's an anti-theist?
He quoted Bill Maher on his page. He read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins. I even have a quote from him right here. It says, "I don't deny your right to believe whatever you'd like, but I have the right to point out it's ignorant and dangerous for as long as your baseless superstitions keep killing people." Which reads as a very ironic statement, given that this man brutally executed 3 people. Was it a hate crime? I think that it is. There's also an article by a woman named Elizabeth Stoker Brunig, who wrote a piece for the New Republic called "The Chapel Hill Murders Should Be a Wake-Up Call for Atheists." And that article is so bad that I'm actually planning to address it in its own video. But for now, I would also like to add that I condemn this murder as I would condemn any murder, and the fact that the killer was an atheist like myself, who even hung out in the same circles that I did, makes me sad and uncomfortable. We should always make sure that the atheist community, both online and off, is one where that sort of violence is always roundly condemned. I think a lot of times when violent acts happen in the name of religion, atheists like myself say that the moderates don't do enough to condemn those actions. And since an atheist has committed these actions, even though I don't think it was related to his atheism, I want to make it clear that I strongly condemn him, and I think that all atheists would probably strongly condemn him. I can't speak for everyone. I'm sure there would be some fringe outliers with radical points of view, but they would be in an extreme minority of people that are not running around in the Dawkins and Hitchens and Harris circles.
Now, the Amazing Atheist knows as good as anybody else that religion is dangerous, and as in the Charlie Hebdo instance, is evil. So when he made his video regarding the Chapel Hill shootings and he portrays the killer as an anti-theist, I'm just curious as to, since the Amazing Atheist is an anti-theist, wouldn't you want to make it more clear that as an atheist, as the most famous atheist in the fucking world, for nothing else other than being an atheist, since the Amazing Atheist is the only person who has ever lived and is only and purely and solely popular for being an atheist and nothing else. Of course, since then he's obtained other attributes to his name, but all the other known atheists have done other things within science and writing and politics, but the Amazing Atheist is the most famous atheist that has ever existed. And his most recent video on anti-theism portrays anti-theists as almost as dangerous as religious people, but the Amazing Atheist is an anti-theist. So here's an example where he even shows that he's an anti-theist and that religion is evil and dangerous. And so that's what I'd like to propose to him. Is he going to address the article by Elizabeth Stoker Bruning, as he states in his video of the Chapel Hill shootings? And here's this example.